What's going on, guys? This is Miasin and welcome to the OCG Metagame Breakdown number 8. And also, I'm trying to show something else today. So the CCT Guangzhou. Oh my god, I destroyed this name. 434 participant tournament though, so definitely something. And of course, the OCG Metagame Breakdown is always around 100 top performing decks, well 77, from 13 tournaments that were held in Japan, mainland China, Philippines, Malaysia, Thailand, and South Korea during only 2 days. So that was a really huge freaking weekend. If it was a weekend, I forgot. Anyways, before this video starts, make sure you like and subscribe. Check me out on Twitch and Instagram, and now let's get right into it. Alright, so as I said, I'll start things off with the CCT, yes. So, yeah, day 1, there's 9 rounds of Swiss, which is actually pretty disgusting. That's a huge day 1. And then top 32 advanced to day 2, and day 2 is only top cut. Well, actually, I'm saying this is disgusting, but in YCS Rio, it was the exact same. So 9 rounds day 1, and then day 2, there's no rounds of Swiss. It's immediately top 32 as soon as you wake up. Anyways, first place was won by Ishizu Tearlaments. And then after that, we have Splight, and then a bunch of Ishizu Tearlaments. Ishizu Tearlaments, Splight, Danger, Dark World. Finally, this deck doing something. And Xatrila, which honestly I'm really shocked because this is not much of a deck. It's rather just 1 card, or maybe 2 cards sometimes, that are being splashed in a bunch of decks, like literally every deck, just like Pankratops, but it's not really a pure deck. Like, every monster in the deck, basically, is just a bunch of Photon Thrashers, so it's really hard to make it a cohesive strategy where a bunch of Xatrila monsters can really do something. Maybe it's just a beatdown deck with a bunch of hand traps, a bunch of board breakers, Zooking Alpha, Pankratops, Kaijus, etc. So yeah, it could be cute, but whatever. And for the deck list, I'm not really gonna spend too much time here because this is not the OCG metagame breakdown, so not gonna be covering too much. However, 2 copies of the continuous spell is very interesting. This will mill 3 cards from your deck whenever your opponent, I believe, summons a monster if you control the Tearlaments. And if it's sent to the grave, you can search a Tearlaments trap card. So you can search the Salic, which is very nice with Kaleido Heart, because if you destroy your own Kaleido Heart, you can send this and then search the trap. So even if your Kit Kalos got negated, you can still get your hands on the trap card. So that's actually massive, because that is one great way of playing through Dark Ruler. Now, one notable thing is that this build does not play Diviner of the Heralds, therefore it is really hard to make Baron, and therefore it is a little harder to destroy your own Kaleido Heart. However, it is still definitely doable if you destroy it on the summon with the field spell. So that is a play that the pro players are actually going for, and definitely a huge kudos to these guys for actually understanding how to correctly play this deck. And for the Ishizu cards, it's usually always the same. However, sometimes there are some variations. One relatively recent trend was people completely cutting Exchange of the Spirit and Gravekeeper's Trap. So they were only playing the Ishizu monsters, and I like that a lot because it makes your deck so much more consistent. However, the ceiling level and the FTK dynamic kind of decreases dramatically. And also, no Gravekeeper's Trap and no Exchange of the Spirit in the side deck either. So really trying to go for consistency above all else. And the only trap card that people are playing now is Solic, no longer Meta Noise, and Crime is always being side decked. And also, people really have to be aware of the Bisted cards, which are walking DD Crows, very terrifying against this deck, because if, you know, your opponent controls a monster, all the Bisted monsters, their effect become quick effect, so you can start DD Crowing your opponent's Light and Darks, and we all know that the Light and Darks in this deck, they're the best cards, they're the Ishizu cards. Well, Light, not really, because there's kind of like no lights outside of this one, but the Darks, yeah. So yeah, side deck, Sphere Mode, again, relatively popular trend, and then Call by the Grave in the side deck, not in the main deck. Very interesting, man. Very interesting. In the TCG, you will never see that. People are always trying to main deck that one Call by the Grave, not really trying to side deck this card. It's not good enough to be in the side deck. It's more of a main deck card. And yeah, 2 copies of Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. I will explain that even more in details later on. And then for Splight, so yeah, double Swap Frog, 1 Nimble Angler. Relatively interesting because usually we would see like triple Swap Frog. And Nimble Angler is a card that is actually very good, even in the TCG with the Runic, because people are actually playing 3 copies of this card, because if every single time you draw like a Runic, you can go for Huggin and then discard the Angler, search for the field spell, summon Double Beaver, and that's basically your Sprite combo, as well as having the field spell with, you know, a Runic Quick Play in your graveyard already, so you could be drawing a bunch of cards on top of making a bunch of negates. Now, this deck is now kind of like a conglomerate, if that makes any sense, of a bunch of good strategies. So 3 Bisted cards with 2 Satchila Fenrir, as well as the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, 8 Hand Shops, double copies of Triple Tactic Talons. Only 1 Smasher is very interesting, but the deck does not have to be afraid of Mystic Mine, so that is definitely something that is understandable and respectable. Shifters and even more, people playing Ghost Reaper in the side deck, with that Kid Kalos being the target, and Splight Elf is the target for the mirror match, or Gigantic Splight, but personally, I believe that Ghost Reapering the Elf is a little better, because it kills their grind game completely. They cannot play the game after turn 1 if you Reaper the Elf, whereas if they hard draw the nuts, even if you Reaper the Gigantic, they can still make interruptions. You will not have to be afraid of your opponent killing you if you Reaper the Elf. It's literally the best card in the extra deck. Yes, I said that. Elf is better than Gigantic. Anyways, for the Ishizu Tearlaments, whatever, I mean, 1 Diviner with Gravekeeper's Trap this time, so again, people don't really agree on the ratios, and Agido sometimes being a 2, like in this deck list it was being a 2, but the Mudora was a 2, however, this time, Mudora is a 3 and Agido is a 2. And then here we have triple Agido, but this player made a mistake writing his deck list. He wrote like another card, so he got a game loss, and unfortunately, he could have went like even further in the tournament, but he didn't write Agido on this deck list. But yeah, Gravekeeper's Trap here, so not really... He's really just trying to abuse the effect of Kelbeck and Agido on the opponent's turn because you can search them and then discard them. So that's actually really cool. And Muddragon of the Swamp, but no Super Poly, so you're actually trying to fuse this card. And there's no Garura either, so that's something that we have in the TCG, meaning that Tearlaments is going to be even better in the TCG than in the OCG, and Maxi is not a thing. So this deck could make like 25 negates turn 1. It's not even funny. Well, actually it is kind of funny, depending on where you stand. Anyways, 1 Bisted monster only, the Druid Worm, no Magnamut, with 2 continuous spells so that, again, you can search the Salic. And it's also a good card to just activate overall. Triple Regeki with Sphere Mode. I will also explain the applications of a Regeki very, very soon. And then here we have Polymerization with King of the Swamp. Very, very old school. That's what I played to top the YCS in Brazil. Now, one insane thing about King of the Swamp is that it can be substituted for Grafa, the Dark World monster, which means that it gives you access to the Gigantic Fusion monster, which is an Omni-Negate and forces your opponent to discard 1 card from your hand, meaning that you can not only negate literally anything like evenly and stuff like that, not Dark Ruler obviously, but on top of that, you can trigger your Tearlaments to fuse even more on your opponent's turn, so that's actually really nasty, and if you're trying to break boards, you can summon Guardian Chimera, so that's really, really freaking interesting. I really like this deck list a lot. And then after that, we have absolutely nothing, so let's get right into the OCG Metagame Breakdown now. Look at this juicy-ass pizza, man. 41.6% are running Tearlaments, and then after that, we have Splight with only 16.9%. It's not that much. It's tier 1 for sure. It's just not like anywhere close to Ishizu Tearlaments. Ishizu Tearlaments is unrivaled. Like even right now, without the Ishizu cards, and with Toad still being a thing, Tearlaments is still better than Splight. This is absurd, man. But yeah, anyways, 12 of them are playing kind of pure, and 1 of them is with Melfi, and then after that we have Bisted. Bisted will be even better in the TCG. Mark my words, Bisted Dragon Link is going to be tier 1. I already kind of have the logic in my head of, people just being able to play like so many hand traps in Dragon Link already, but when you take into consideration the fact that the Bisted monsters are not only hand traps, they're DD Crows, but on top of that, they're engine cards, because they can search, like, Levineer and stuff like that, or Rocket Tracer, Chaos Dragon, Wyvern Buster, Seifert, etc. It just increases the consistency of Bisted so much that it really can beat Ishizu Tearlaments relatively consistently if you know what you're doing. So yeah, Dragon Maid, Branded Bisted, I don't know if this is going to be very good here. Branded Bisted, Chaos Thunder Dragon Bisted, this is actually extremely fun. I've made a video on this deck, actually. It makes a lot of negates, it makes huge unbreakable boards, and it has a lot of gas, so it can definitely destroy boards going second. And then Lawn Mowing Tearlaments, Branded Bisted. This is more of a Tearlaments deck than a Bisted deck, so it should actually be in this category. Anyways, Flunderies, Exorcister, this is very disappointing, man. Again, I was really expecting Exorcister to always be like so much better, but it really fell from heaven, man. It was so much better before. Anyways, Adamancipator, Dinosaur, Lawn Mowing, Tearlaments, Thunder Dragon, Punk Bisted. Holy shit, a bunch of engines in one deck. That's actually really freaking cool. Bisted Dragon Link, yeah, okay, it's only 1 in the OCG, but again, they have Maxi, so Dragon Link is a little less appealing. But in the TCG, Dragon Link has always been a good deck. However, with the Bisted cards, I can imagine Dragon Link to be in the top 3 best decks. DDD, Ishizu, Tearlaments, Necroface, oh my god! That's actually hilarious, man. Necroface reminds me of a Hippo Turbo. Satrila, Virtual World, okay, more like Virtual World featuring 1 card. Luna Light, Luna? What the? Fairy Tail Luna, it's the Grand Maju deck, yeah. Luna, Mechanite, Orcus, no, sorry. Luna freaking Kaiju. Anyways, Madalche, Mathmech, Adignister, Orcus, Pururi, what the hell? Splight, Altergeist, Splight, Tri-Brigade, Melfi, and Tri-Brigade. Alright, now let's get right into the first deck list, which is also going to be relatively interesting. So Elvis, Agodo, Junior, Junjun, 3rd in Asian Championship 2014, not too bad. World Championship 2013, Philippines representative. So he went to Worlds, he knows what he's doing. He went 10-0-1 and finished 1st in the Philippines Duelist Cup, which had almost 200 players. Very nicely done. So he played Foolish Burial, Extra Foolish Burial in the side deck, which is Foolish Burial for the extra deck, basically like the name suggests. And that's actually really nice because if you're sending a card like, let's say, Kit Kalos, you get to mill 5 cards. So if you're, trying to play around Ghost Reaper, what people typically are doing is that they're sending the Kit Kalos mill 5 and then mill probably a Tearlaments, and then fuse for another Kit Kalos and then search, so even if they get Reapered, they're not losing anything because the Kit Kalos is already on the field. So, there's really nothing to lose here. It's actually pretty broken. And it also makes you play around the Bisted monsters because you do not control any monsters on the field while you are trying to fuse. So, you don't have to be afraid of their DD Crow-esque effect because, again, like I said, the Bisted monsters are only DD Crows if your opponent controls a monster. Otherwise, they are slow effects, so you would have to, use them on your own turn, which is not ideal. Anyways, double Salic, very interesting. That's also what I'm considering doing in Punk Tearlaments. Triple Evenly, triple Regeki, double Extra Foolish, like I said. The Crime, so this is always going to be played in the deck. Call by the Grave. I think at this point we've gotten to a point where everybody and their mother is citing 2 Call by the Grave, which I honestly cannot understand why. Triple Magnamut with 1 Druid Worm. We always see these 2 cards in everyone's main or side deck. It really depends. But yeah, these cards are broken. The engine is absolutely going to be meta impactful, and you will see it honestly everywhere. So definitely keep an eye on these 2 cards. I think there's also another one, but it's like a Foolish Burial. It's less good. So this one is like a Scarm. Basically, on the end phase, you get to search a dragon from the deck or graveyard to the hand. And this one, if it's sent from the field to the grave, you get to send a special summon monster your opponent controls to the grave. And they're all level 6 Dark Dragons. So again, they can do a lot of really nasty things. They can allow you to Link Off or Synchro or Xyz for Beatrice and stuff like that. So definitely a lot of synergy on a bunch of decks, and Dragon Link abuses the shit out of these decks. But yeah, for the rest of the extra deck, I mean the Asa so that you can revive the Xatrila Fenrir and Pecrotops. Dark is just overall really good. Burlow Dragon so that you can steal the Mechanite Crusadia Avermax that was summoned with IP Masquerena. And that's the reason why people are no longer really playing Avermax and Splight, however, with some people going back to the Underworld Goddess or just people cutting Borload. Some others are back to playing the Mechanite Crusadia Avermax again. However, a really nice trend is people now playing News Reporter from the Underworld. It's this card right there. So if you summon this with IP Masquerena, it becomes undestructible by card effect. So if you would get Regeki'd, this card would not die. However, the other cards would die since they are destructible. However, you can tribute this card to protect your other cards from the destruction of Regeki. So now this deck can now have a inherent way of dodging Regeki with IP Masquerena linking off into News Reporter. So that's actually really freaking broken. You don't really have to commit too much. You don't have to draw Solemn Judgment. And that's the reason why people are no longer citing Solemn Judgment, because Regeki is no longer an insta-win against this deck. So if you have a protected Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, this is where your deck becomes nasty. You might want to rely on Evenly now, because again, they are not really negating it with Splight Carrot because nobody is really turboing out Splight Carrot. People would rather summon the Splight Red so that they can protect themselves from hand traps. But yeah, Carrot, I mean, Carrot is just a card that now people are cutting even sometimes from the main deck, and they're side decking it for going first on game 2 or 3. Because it's typically not fantastic going second. And yeah, the rest of the deck is very standard. In case you're wondering, no Ninja Mosquito, I think that's the name, or something, the Hallucination guy. People are playing Obnimaru instead, relatively popular card. It's kind of like a Farfa, Basically, it banishes a monster upon controls until the next end phase, if I recall correctly. And Codebreakers and now 2 Baguska, because Baguska can easily be summoned in Ishizu Tier Elements, and it is game over against Tier Elements. Splight. And even Tier Elements, it's actually pretty good, but it's not like Tier 0. Against Tier Elements, you're trying to turbo out the Dweller, and the Time Thiever Doer is a consistency card. So I actually just explained every single Xyz monster. Anyways, for the side deck, the Gamma Burst is very interesting, and apart from that, whatever, kind of makes sense. Triple Shifter, double DDG, so if you're going first and you draw one of these cards, you're typically always winning the game because this deck is very, very consistent. Going first, you're pretty much always doing something. You're not doing a huge thing, but you're at least doing something. So yeah, in conclusion, Tier Elements just keeps freaking leading, and Splight is not bad. It's still the second best deck, but man, it really cannot compete with Tier Elements at like the high level for, you know, those wins, because as we can see from these tournament reports, Ishizu Tier Elements really is demolishing everyone. It's not even close. And that's why I said that Ishizu Tier Elements is Tier 0, because even though in terms of top rate and in terms of people playing the deck, it's not like 70%. In terms of win rate of, you know, first place in tournament, it really is by far the best. It's not even like a contest. That's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.